Please welcome to the stage Mandy Hickson and Tim Peake.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Royal International Air Tattoo, but more importantly to the Inspire stage. So it's fantastic to have you all here. And this session is all about welcoming you to the Blast Off presentation. Now, the Road to RIAT, or Blast Off, is the RAF Charitable Trust's exclusive competition for secondary schools. It challenges teams of pupils aged between 11 and 14 to imagine setting up a new space exploratory company and planning the research expedition of that newly discovered planet. Now, I've got a lot of people at the front who are all nodding because they've all taken part in this incredible program. Now, this year, 60 schools all over the UK have taken part and become space explorers for the day. Now, they discovered the RAF's role in space exploration, as well as taking part in a series of challenges, which included designing, building their own prototype landers, developing teamwork, critical thinking, and creativity skills. After the day, they designed that they did basically was finalised and we prepared a pitch for the support from our Road to RIAT judges. The judges were looking at lots of different things that are really important in every day. Things like sustainability, about a good understanding of the principles of science, technology, engineering, and creativity, both in the design of the base and in their competition entry. Our winning teams, I can see lots of smiling faces, are all sitting in the front row. So could you now please stand up, please, turn around and face the audience and give a big wave, and can everyone give a huge round of applause? Woo! Oh, I'm loving that enthusiasm. Woo! Excellent, fantastic stuff. And really big, a huge congratulations to have got this far. You've done absolutely brilliant. But now it comes to the exciting bit. Who is going to be the national winner? Are you feeling nervous? Yes, they're all nodding. Okay, we've got a rather special guest who is going to come up onto the stage to do the award ceremony itself. So, can you all put your hands together for the incredible Tim Peake?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mandy.
My pleasure. Tim, it's an absolute joy to have you here. Thank you so much for coming to join us. We've got a little bit of an intro video going here, so should we let that play out and let them see what you are all about? How cool is that? Please give another round of applause for the incredible Tim Peake.
Thank you. And what a morning. I'm so excited about these awards. I think they're brilliant and they just show so much effort and enthusiasm and creativity that have gone into them.
And I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about really, pitching it, thinking about those creative brains, designing it and getting to this stage. So now it's the all-important moment. It's the winners. So let's have a slow clap, equivalent of a drum roll. Are we ready? And who is the winner? The winner is Frome Community College. Please stand up and come to the stage. So now the next bit you've all been waiting for. Yes, Tim, do you want to come and take a seat? Fantastic, because obviously we can't stand up for the entirety of this. It would be far too exhausting, wouldn't it? Tim, I had the pleasure of interviewing a couple of years ago here in the Inspire stage in the Techno Zone at RIAT, and it's an absolute pleasure. I mean, you've had a busy couple of years since then, haven't you?
It's been really busy, but that's great news for me because space is so exciting at the moment. And we're doing a lot more in space, a lot more launches, a lot more happening. So it's absolutely fantastic.
So is there anybody in the audience, I'd love to get a feeling of this, is there anyone in the audience who's never heard of Tim Peake? A few people. So Tim, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and about what you've done, and perhaps what those two lower badges mean as well.
Yes, so I'm dressed in this blue flight suit. I used to wear a green flight suit when I was in the army, but I'm now dressed in a blue flight suit.
We don't talk about the army. Yeah, sorry.
This blue flight suit is not for the Royal Air Force. It's actually the colour that astronauts wear, and this is a NASA flight suit. And I was selected as a British astronaut in 2009 by the European Space Agency and flew to this International Space Station in 2015 and spent 6 months living and working on board the space station. Had the opportunity to do a spacewalk as well. Lots of different scientific experiments up there. I worked in total for about 10 years with the European Space Agency. So before that, my route to becoming an astronaut was as an Army Air Corps pilot, and I love flying so much, I decided to become an instructor, and then I decided to become a test pilot. So that was the kind of route that I took.
And being a test pilot, you know, actually, do we have a video about it? I'd love to see. Did that help you in that journey?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the whole journey gave me so many skills. I'll give you a little bit of a flavour of the kind of thing that as test pilots that we get up to. So let's roll the next video, please.
Effect on it. That was a good one.
As a test pilot, it's a wonderful ride. We're accelerating 25 times the speed of sound, 10 times the speed of a bullet.
Jackie.
Incredible.
So,
oh my word, can I just say that the whole stage was shaking at that point. I felt like we were actually part of that journey. It was incredible.
I miss those days in the office, I really do. I'm sure you do too.
I really do miss those. So yes, I used to get a bit of a thrill as well. So I used to be a tornado pilot in the Royal Air Force as well. So we share a common love of flying, but I did join the superior of the two services in the Royal Air Force and not
let's not go there. They don't want to hear that.
Sorry, I can't help it. He might have been an astronaut, but still chose the wrong service. So can I ask, I'd love for many of the people in the zone today, how on earth did you get into it? Because we've got a lot of young people here, and it's quite a niche area, and people sort of often think it's such a big thing. How would I ever even become a pilot, let alone an astronaut? So can you talk about that journey a little bit?
Absolutely. And my journey, as you saw there, you might think it was quite traditional, because back in the 1950s, when they first were selecting astronauts, both the Americans and the Russians said, fast jet test pilots, they have to be astronauts. That's who we're going to take. That's not the case today. Today, there are many, many different routes to becoming an astronaut. And in fact, less than 50% of all the astronauts we have today started out as pilots. They started out as scientists, as engineers. We've had school teachers, computer programmers, one Alaskan fisherman, all sorts of different careers. So that's great because it means that you don't have to worry too much about what you do as your first job. You have to pick something you're really passionate about and be really good at it. And I find if it's something you're passionate about, you tend to be good at it anyway. So, I mean, my journey, as you saw there, is kind of like quite traditional, but that's not necessarily the case today. You can become an astronaut by going through various different ways.
And I think actually Tim just touched on something that really resonated with myself. He said, find a subject that you're passionate about because then it becomes easy. And I think so often when we're going through school, in fact, Tim and I were just talking behind the stage about the fact that actually in education, we often feel we've got to do the right things and sometimes they aren't things that resonate with us. So it's about choosing things that really, really inspire you and invigorate you because guess what? You're more passionate for that learning then because you've got a bit more of a purpose, don't you?
Absolutely, and everybody's different. We all grow up at different rates, and some people are absolutely shining academically when they're 14, 15, 16. That's brilliant. Some people are late bloomers, and perhaps, academically, they start to get really curious and really interested in something in their early to late 20s. I'll let you into a secret here, which some school teachers don't like it when I go around to speak to schools and students, and I kind of say, yeah, I got a C, a D, and an E in my A-levels, and I left school at 18.
Wow.
And they say, wow, and you became an astronaut. I said, yes, but let me caveat that. I haven't ever stopped working incredibly hard since leaving school. I managed to get a degree at the ripe old age of 33 in flight dynamics. And for me, when I was at school, I found it hard to relate the subjects I was studying to actually how it was going to help me. And then the moment I started flying, everything clicked into place. Maths and physics became obvious as to how they relate. And as a test pilot, it became even more obvious when you start thinking about how simulators work, how to program them, flight dynamics, pitch, roll, yaw, everything. It all just clicked. And so for me, it was a case of being able to relate those subjects into something I was really excited about learning. And I think that's key for everybody.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think, when we talk about things, it is about having that absolute desire to learn. And what Tim is demonstrating there is something that we often describe as the growth mindset. So it's about actually, okay, you might not have got where you wanted to begin with, but actually, where am I going next? And actually, how can I get there? So I always say it's like being on an escalator. And so long as we're moving in the right direction, sometimes it doesn't matter if we take a slightly different direction, we can get there in the end as well. So as we're talking, guys, if there are any questions that you are thinking of, if you just raise your hand for me as well, and then I can always come out to you, and I'll come out as soon as we get a sort of a nice spot, because I'm sure there's going to be loads of questions that you actually have for Tim as well. So just raise your hand, and I can ask you a question then as well. Okay, so we'll just sort of carry on then. So going on to the actual space station, I mean, what would you say was the most surprising thing about living, breathing, and existing in a space station?
One of the surprising things is it's not smelly. Which you might think, there's been people living up there for 25 years. We exercise for 2 hours a day, and nobody takes a shower. So you might think, oh, God, it's going to really smell when you get on board. And I remember my crewmates, Tim Kopra, Yuri Malenchenko, they were on Yuri was on his 6th trip, Tim was on his 2nd trip, and they said, right, remember the smell when you get on board, because after 20 minutes, you're completely desensitized. And actually, it's a very metallic, clinical smell. I mean, you'd expect, really, it's a laboratory.
Yeah.
But it looks just like the simulators, so you feel like it's a home from home. You've been training for 2.5 years in all these simulators down on the ground, or the mock-ups, and you float into the space station, you think, wow, this is just like the mock-up down in Houston, but you're floating in weightlessness. And then you go to the cupola window, and there's Earth beneath you, and you kind of think, oh yeah, that's slightly different.
I mean, do you have moments now where you almost look back and think, I can't believe I did it?
Yes, I do, but I'm also, because I keep in touch, very close contact with the space agency and also what's going on in the space program, it kind of keeps it very fresh in my mind. So it's probably not a day goes by where I'm not thinking about something I was doing in the space station.
And what about the meals that you eat up there? Sort of, how does that work?
Who likes camping in here? Put your hand up if you like camping. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, right. So imagine the stuff you're going to take on a camping holiday. That's the kind of food we've got on the space station. It's those foil packets, anything that you can put in an electric food warmer and heat up. Some of it's dehydrated, so we just connect it to the hot water tap. And then, that's our vegetables and our pastas and our soups. It's not very tasty because they remove a lot of salt from the food. That's not good for us up there. And so you don't go to space if you're a foodie, basically.
I can imagine, actually. And just the physical living. So, obviously it's going to be really important to keep, a level of muscular mass as well. So you touched on the fact that you exercise for 2 hours a day. How does that actually look, exercising in weightlessness?
Yeah, we've got some challenges because if you try to run on a running machine, you're going to float up and not go very far. So we have to wear a bungee system. It's like putting on a rucksack that's got 2 elastic straps, and we connect these elastic straps to a treadmill, and that keeps us pinned down so we can run. We've got a bike machine where we clip our feet into the pedals, but we have no seat, no need for a seat, and then with our feet in the pedals, we just pedal away. And we have something called ARED, which is like a multi-gym, and we use vacuum cylinders for resistance training. But if we didn't exercise, we would lose a lot of bone density and we'd lose a lot of muscle mass. And when we came back after a 6-month mission, it would take months and months to recover from that. So by exercising an hour and a half to 2 hours every day, we stay fit and healthy for when we return back to Earth.
That's incredible, isn't it? And is it easy to go to the toilet? Can I just ask the question that we're all thinking? How easy is it to go to the toilet up in space?
Well, it's easy to go to the toilet. It's not easy to not make a mess. So that's the problem, is how do you go to the toilet and not make a mess? Yeah. And the most important thing is there's a fan. And the fan, it creates this airflow. It's a bit like peeing down the hose of a vacuum cleaner. Don't try that at home, please, because for any of the kids, your parents really will not thank you for it. But if you were to pee down into a vacuum cleaner, the vacuum cleaner would keep all the urine going in the right direction. And that's what we do in space. We've got a big funnel, and it collects all the urine. But then what it does is it spins it round, it separates the liquid from the air, so the air in the fan goes through and gets cleaned up, and all the urine gets reprocessed in 48 hours, and we're drinking it again. So when you're having a morning cup of tea, you're kind of thinking to yourself, I wonder whose pee this was 2 days ago.
What a lovely thought. I'm going to think of that when I go back to patrons and have a cup of tea, that at least it's not repurposed we. That I wouldn't be selling it to me for that reason. But you're not just up in space just to live, are you, and exist? You're doing scientific experiments. Can you talk us through perhaps one of the most interesting experiments that you might have done up there?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, as scientists, we love to change things and find out what happens. So you might change pressure or temperature or humidity, or if you're doing the blast-off experiment, you might change the amount of propellant you've got or the mass of the payload. So what we've done in space is we've changed gravity. We've effectively gone to 1G, which we're all suffering from right now, pinned to our seats, to 0G. And when you go to 0G, some amazing things happen. And you can grow protein crystals, for example. So if you've got a disease-causing protein, like motor neuron or Huntington disease or Parkinson's, by growing a very pure, large crystal in space, the pharmaceutical companies can make very, very good drugs with low dosage for patients, low side effects. We can make metal alloys in space you can't make on Earth. They're crazy. They're like light and elastic. And by doing that, companies like Rolls-Royce can make their engine turbine blades much more efficient and safer as well. We've started, this is crazy, we've started to print out human organs using bioink and stem cells and 3D printers. So the idea is, if you can take stem cells from a patient, you can print their heart in space, bring it back to Earth, transplant, no risk of rejection from the body because it's effectively your heart. Now, we can't do that on Earth because any fragile, delicate structure like a heart, if you try printing out, it's going to collapse in on itself and you'd need a scaffolding and it just wouldn't work. Where in weightlessness, we can do that. We've got no gravity, we've got no sedimentation, so delicate, fragile structures, we can build them.
That's phenomenal. So you're taking 3D printers up into space. They are up there, are they?
We've had them for over 10 years in space now, yeah. In fact, one morning I woke up and Houston said, Tim, could you go to the printer? And we've printed something out overnight. And I opened up the 3D printer and there was a tool that we needed for a spacewalk that was coming up in 2 days' time. And the engineers had just printed out a different socket set that we needed, and there it was, and off we went and used it on the spacewalk.
That is incredible. We're used to the sign of Houston, we have a problem, but here we go. Houston, we have a tool. What's not to love on that one? So let's just move on a little bit. Does anyone have any questions that they've been... Yes, what's your question? I'm going to come down and I'm going to get him to speak into my microphone then. Are you ready then? What is your question?
How would you drink in space?
That's a really good question. So water's going to go everywhere in space if you don't keep it under control. So our water is in foil pouches and it has a straw. But even then, the water would leak out the straw. So the straw has a clamp on it. And what we do is we just unclamp this straw, suck the water out of the foil pouch, and then make sure we put the clamp back on again. And everything in space has a little piece of Velcro on it. Because if you don't Velcro that water pouch to the wall, if you let go of it, you turn around, when you go back again, it will not be there. It's floated off somewhere into the space station. And we're always losing things. You can't just put something on the table and expect it to stay there. You know, gravity can be really helpful, but on the space station, you Velcro everything. So, yeah, that's how we drink water.
That's a really good question. Thank you. And we've got another great question coming.
How do you brush your teeth?
Well, brushing our teeth,
I love that.
we brush our teeth in pretty much the same way as you do on Earth, but we do something, again, I wouldn't recommend you do this, but we have no sink, so we can't spit out. So what we do is we brush our teeth, we take a swig of water, and then we just drink. So we're actually kind of drinking the toothpaste. Now, in over 6 months, that's not going to do you much harm, but I wouldn't recommend doing that for a lifetime.
And I'd just like to say, and then he's weeing that toothpaste out, and then he's drinking it in 2 days' time as well. Well, I mean, what is not to love with that one? Minty after all.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Nice one.
Yeah, exactly.
What if you run out of food?
Oh, that's a very good question. So if we thought we were going to start to run out of food, we would start to have ration ourselves. But we have always about 6 months' worth of extra food on the space station. And the space station is being resupplied by cargo vehicles. But when I went to space, in the year before I launched, we had 3 cargo vehicles that blew up. They didn't make it into space. One blew up on the launch pad, one blew up on its way to space, one got into orbit, then went out of control and burnt up on re-entry. So by the time I got on the space station, we were already quite low on supplies, and we were just having to be a little bit careful. We didn't have 6 months' worth of spares. But now we've built that back up again, so we've always got plenty of food.
And they can't really print the food, can they?
Well, you can actually print the food, but you need to obviously take up the ingredients, and then you can print out the food. Yeah, we've been doing some amazing research for our trip to Mars, when we might want to, take.
Wow.
It's much more efficient to take food up as powder and then just print out what you need.
So that's incredible, actually. In fact, I'd love just to explore this then. So, Tim, you are involved in this planning and looking at what we're doing with regards to the British mission. Can you tell a little bit to the audience about what's going on with that?
Yes, I mentioned why space is so exciting at the moment. We've moved on from the space station shot, but the space station you had behind me before has been amazing and brilliant, but it's coming up to the end of its life around 2030. If you imagine it goes around the planet 16 times a day, and every time it goes around the planet, it's about 200 degrees in the sunshine and about minus 150 in the shade. So all that metal is getting really hot, really cold 16 times a day. So there's only so much longer it can stay up. But we have companies that are building new space stations that are going up in the next couple of years. So that's really exciting. We've got companies that are looking at how we're going to get to the moon in the next couple of years as well, and how we're going to build research stations at the south pole of the moon where there's ice, water ice. So where there's water ice, we can drink the water, we can create oxygen for our atmosphere, we can even make rocket fuel out of hydrogen and oxygen. So this is the kind of direction we're going in just the next few years.
Wow. So, I mean, this is sort of stuff that we used to read about in those futuristic things like living on the moon, living in space. And actually, we really are doing that now, aren't we? Which is just fantastic.
We are, yes. And it's getting cheaper and easier. I'm sure everybody's seen SpaceX and those amazing shots of rockets being captured, the boosters being captured on their way back from space. And that makes it so much easier and cheaper to get there. Because actually, the cheapest part of any rocket is the fuel. So if you bring the whole rocket back again and just put fuel in and go again and launch that booster 100 times, then the cost of getting to space has just plummeted. And we're looking at maybe in the region of about $200 to $300 for 1 kilogram to get to low Earth orbit. I think you'd struggle to send a kilogram to Florida for $200.
Yeah, certainly not fueling a tornado. I think it'd be a bit more than that. We've got another question here.
What do you do when you're bored?
That's a good question. What I tend to do, generally speaking, is I'm always very curious. So sometimes being bored is good. And I read a study recently, actually, about how we should allow children to be bored occasionally, because that's when your mind wanders and you start to get creative and you start thinking about things that you haven't perhaps had time to think about in the day. On the space station, unfortunately, we don't have any time to get bored. They work us really, really hard. So Monday to Friday, it's full on all the science. Saturday, cleaning the space station, doing education outreach and science programs. Sunday, meeting day and speaking to your family, which is lovely. So Sunday's the only day where you get a few hours where you might grab a camera, go to the window, take photos and things like that. So never got bored in space, but it's okay to get bored on Earth.
I think that's a really, really good point. I would love to get a show of hands. How many of you, when you are bored, just reach for something electronic? Go on, be really honest. And the parents, come on. You see, the majority of people. But actually, that really good point there about this is where our creativity comes from. That is really, really important. So allow yourself to be bored. Let your mind wander. Do your STEM Lego project, you know, something like that. What can I say? We're going to do one more question from over here, and then we've got one at the back, and we've got one at the back and one here as well. So,
How do you sleep in space?
That's another good question. So sleeping in space, the things you have to worry about is knocking your head on the roof or the floor if you're floating around too much. So we strap our sleeping bags to the wall. Now, you can either have that with Velcro or something really tightly strapped to the wall, or you can just let yourself float around a little bit. So I used to use zip ties, and the zip ties would allow me to float around a bit, which is a really nice feeling when you're going to sleep. You don't need a pillow, of course. You're not resting your head on anything. You're just zipping up your sleeping bag. And our sleeping bags, our arms come out, so we can be in our sleeping bags while still working and reaching for things in our crew quarter. So it takes a while to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's the best night's sleep ever.
I think these are all the really strange things that we sort of don't really think about. The fact you don't need a pillow. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? We've got a question up here as well. Yes?
What happens to all your crumbs that you drop?
Yes, the crumbs. If you drop lots of crumbs, you become very unpopular as a crew member very quickly. So we try not to make crumbs. And we don't take food up there that's going to be too crumbly. So packets of crisps would be a nightmare. Although I did have some peanuts up there. You had to be very careful how you ate them. Just cut a tiny corner off the packet and then make sure your mouth's over the packet so the peanuts don't go everywhere. But crumbs are not good because they'll just float around. And then if somebody gets a crumb in their eye, that can be really annoying. So we like to keep the air as clean as possible.
Crumbs. Come on, that deserved more of a laugh than that, didn't it? Yes, absolutely. Smashing
She's here
the
all week,
humour.
folks.
All weekend, yes. You too can engage in this hilarity. Another great question coming.
What are the latest developments in the search for life outside of Earth?
Yes, brilliant question. We have lots of scientists doing lots of amazing research looking for life. So when we're looking for life close to home in our own solar system, we've got the Rosalind Franklin rover, which is going to go to Mars. That's exciting. It's got a drill that can go down about 2 meters into the surface of Mars. And those samples will help to give us an idea of whether there's been any past fossilized life or maybe even, who knows, some small sort of microbial bacterial life on Mars. We are excited about the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. We think that some of them have got liquid oceans beneath their icy crusts, and where there's liquid water, there's a chance of life to evolve. But when we look further afield, it gets even more exciting, because the James Webb Space Telescope, this is a really lovely big telescope. It's the biggest mirror we've ever put into space. And it's out way far beyond the moon, and it's staring into the cosmos. And the James Webb has found this planet. It's got a really catchy name, this planet. It's called K2-18b. I don't know who named it K2-18b. Anyway, that planet, the scientists have discovered 2 gases in the atmosphere of that planet, dimethyl sulfide, if you're interested, and dimethyl disulfide. Now, we know on Earth those gases can only be produced by bacteria and phytoplankton. And we don't know of any other way that those gases can be produced. And we found a planet with those gases in the atmosphere. So there's a smoking gun there that there could be a planet that we've already discovered that has life on it. And as the technology improves over the next few years, we're going to have more and more telescopes that are searching for life out there on other planets, which is really exciting.
Well, it's exciting because it's something that you've always believed, could actually
I think the universe is teeming with life.
Yeah.
I think we are quite special to make that big jump. I mean, nothing really happened after life evolved on Earth. We had 3 billion years where it was quite boring, and it was all just single-celled life. And then suddenly, you had this explosion of complex, interesting life, conscious life forms. But even if you look at Earth, there are today about 1,000 species of animal that we would probably say has intelligence and consciousness. And out of those 1,000 species of animal, only one of them has got a space program. And so we are quite special. So even if you find another planet that has life, that's made that jump from single cell to multicellular, that's made the giant jump to intelligent and conscious, it still might not have a space program.
It might not have a space program. There's one reason that I'd quite like to go into space, and it's just sitting this close to you, Tim. Are you actually getting younger? That is what's actually happened, I think, basically, from your time in space.
You wouldn't know it from my face. I'm actually 35, but...
Yeah, there you go.
So, yes, you do. Some really weird and wacky things happen when you go into space. And it's all about Einstein's theories of special relativity and general relativity. If you want to read up about it, then it's some great evening reading there.
Yeah.
But basically, if you travel faster, time slows down. And if you go into a heavy gravity environment, time slows down as well. So in space, we got the two things counteracting each other. We're going fast. We're going 25 times the speed of sound. So our clock is slowing down. But because we've gone into a lighter gravity environment, our clock's speeding up. So the two kind of cancel each other. But I think a scientist told me I was 0.07 seconds younger when I came back.
Oh, that is fantastic.
I'm sure it shows.
So when you say about high G, for myself and Joe, that's why we're actually only 25. But, because we've been flying fast jets, we're actually look like we're about 60. We have a question here.
Have you ever seen a space shuttle docked to the Harmony module on the ISS, or are you not up there for long enough?
Docked to the Harmony module. So I wasn't up there when the space shuttle docked to the space station. Was that the question? Yeah, unfortunately not. I watched the last space shuttle launch, went out to Florida when I was first selected. Well, in fact, we were supposed to. It was delayed by about 7 days. So I got to meet the crew and see the shuttle on the pad. And then the night that we flew back from Florida was the night it went. But a phenomenal vehicle, the space shuttle. It really was. When I was on board, we were docking cargo vehicles like SpaceX Dragon and the Cygnus cargo vehicle. And we were flying in the Soyuz capsule. That was the only vehicle flying. Now, of course, we've got Soyuz and we've got SpaceX. And occasionally we have a Boeing Starliner, which we're really hoping they can get to work properly.
Well, that would be good. We have a question at the back there.
Has any astronauts got lost?
Oh, that's a good question. That is, do you know that's our greatest fear?
Yeah.
Getting lost in space, that's what keeps us awake at night. We go to enormous efforts not to get lost. So when we go on a spacewalk, we have to let go with both our hands because we're always using tools and doing science and things. So before letting go, we always have to put down a tether. Yeah. And if we forget to put that tether down, we've got a second tether, which is a small steel wire. That's a safety tether. And if that one snaps or we forget to put that down, we've got a very small jetpack. It gives us about 20 seconds worth of fuel, hopefully enough to find the space station in the darkness and make it back home again. So, yeah, we really don't want to get lost in space.
No, definitely not. We have one question here, and then I'm going to tie it together with a few more questions.
When you're up on the space station, do you wear a helmet?
That's a great question. No, inside the space station, we are normally dressed in shorts, T-shirt, and socks. As comfortable as that. Nobody needs to wear any shoes. Why do you need to wear shoes when you're not walking around anywhere? And in fact, we're hooking our feet underneath handrails to keep ourselves stable, rather than actually putting our feet on the floor or anything. So it's a very relaxed dress code on the space station. But if you're going to wander outside and do a spacewalk, then you'll want to have that helmet on, definitely.
That's a great one. We have
two more.
Just two more questions now. So we've got one already lined up over here.
Hi, Tim. If you weren't an astronaut, what would you be?
Well, As you saw from that video, I was kind of enjoying my previous career as a test pilot. So if I wasn't an astronaut, I would have carried on as a test pilot. I was absolutely loving that. And I think, really, for me, being an astronaut is like an extension of being a test pilot, really. We're doing test and evaluation on cutting-edge science and technology. It's just you haven't perhaps got your hands on the controls as much as you did when you were flying.
Fantastic. And we have a question here.
What are your predictions for the future of UK's rockets and more of the space program? Will we have things like SpaceX does in the future, like the next 10 years or so, or will it be a bit slower progression than that?
That's a brilliant question. We had the UK Space Conference in Manchester yesterday. So I was in Manchester all day yesterday speaking to amazing companies in the UK that are doing lots of exciting things in space. Two of them were there, one called Skyrora, one called Orbex. Both of them are hoping to launch from Scotland later this year or early in 2026. And these are companies that are launching small satellites into a polar orbit, which is really exciting. So that's kind of like our equivalent of SpaceX, if you like, for the small satellite community rather than launching humans into space. So the UK isn't well placed for launching into the equator, whereas we can launch into a polar orbit very well. So that's really exciting. We've got companies that are looking at making orbital data centers. So every time you guys go on your devices and you think, oh, I wonder if ChatGPT can answer this, or let me make up some meme of a cat, doing something silly, you're using a lot of data. And that data is using a lot of energy. And that is also creating a lot of heat, which needs water to cool it. And all of this is sucking up Earth's resources. So I've got a gentle plea is please be careful with your ChatGPT searches. But also what we're trying to do is saying, OK, why not move all these data centers off the planet? We've got clean, limitless, free energy in space, and we can reject all that heat into space with no problem whatsoever. So later this year, a company is launching 2 orbital data centers into space, and we're hoping to build those in the UK. This is really exciting as well. This is absolute cutting-edge stuff.
That really is quite exciting, isn't it? And behind the scenes, Tim and I were just talking about an exciting a tour that's coming up. Can you tell everyone about the tour, about any of the stories that you might be sharing, that what we can expect from that?
Yeah, so I'm going to be very busy September, October, touring all around the UK, and this is Astronauts, the Quest to Explore Space. So rather than it being about my story to space, this is me telling the story of everybody, everything we've done. It's like the greatest hits of space exploration. So I love it because I can relax. It's not about me, it's about everyone else, but it's the highlights of those first spacewalks, the Mir space station and all of its problems, the shuttle, as we were talking about earlier, and driving a buggy on the surface of the moon. Loads of original, brilliant footage. So I love it. It kind of takes you through where we've been, where we are today, and excitingly, where we're going with Moon and Mars and beyond.
Fantastic. I think that sounds like definitely one not to miss. You know what? It's fascinating, and I think what we touched on, and I think what we've talked about with that Blast Off program as well, that we've seen from our fantastic winners, and we're seeing that there are so many different opportunities in space, aren't we? It's not just about being a fast jet pilot or being a helicopter pilot or a test pilot. There are so many opportunities in lots and lots of different walks of life. And, could you summarize all of the different people in that team that you would need as part of that program?
Absolutely. I mean, there are 55,000 people directly employed in just the UK space industry. So it's amazing. And, yesterday I was talking to engineers and scientists, of course, but I was also talking to people who are doing experiments in biology. I mentioned about the human hearts and the protein crystals. So we've got people from all sorts of different walks of life with all sorts of different expertise. And one guy who's started a company called SpaceForge, Josh Weston, he's an amazing guy. He's producing microprocessors with silicon wafers that were grown in space. And these silicon wafers are giving us purity that's 100 times greater than the silicon that we're currently using. So much more energy efficient processors, much lower heat output, all these kind of things. So the amazing work that you can do in space, we're just starting to scratch the surface really of what microgravity can do for us. And it's bringing in people from all sorts of areas, all sorts of parts of business.
Absolutely fantastic. So just to finish, if you were to give one piece of advice to our future space explorers that we have here today, what would be that piece of advice?
I would say there's so much information out there. Go and find out about it. Look at just the UK Space Agency website, the European Space Agency website. They're great starting points. SpaceX and what they're doing is really exciting. So just go and find out the information, find out what excites you. And then there are lots of companies who are willing to help people with apprenticeships and work placements and work experience to find out more about the space sector and the kind of careers that are open to you.
So I think there's only one thing left to do. Thank you so much for that, Tim. And it's to put our hands together and thank Tim for his incredible presentation.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mandy.